I've had my share of weird flights. Who hasn't? But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the 3 hours of high-altitude melodrama that unfolded on Air Pacific Flight 419, ATL to LAX. I paid extra for that specific window seat, 12F, because I'm a nervous flyer, and having the world shrink beneath me, that predictable, beautiful geometry, is my anti-anxiety medicine, right? So when this hurricane in an electric teal silk tracksuit marched onto the plane and tried to steal my tiny piece of calm, I knew it wasn't just going to be a bumpy flight. It was going to be a war. It all started at Gate A27 in Atlanta, where the atmosphere felt less like a transit hub and more like an audition for a reality show that only one person knew they were starring in. Her name, as I soon learned through her aggressively amplified voice, was Bliss Sinclair, a wellness and lifestyle guru, and she was dressed head to toe in a shade of teal, so bright it felt like it should come with a warning label. Everything was teal: the blazer, the leggings, the tiny, impractical, high-heeled travel booties, and the phone case affixed to the selfie stick she held aloft, broadcasting every dramatic exhale to her followers, whom she affectionately called her Zen tribe. She was pacing a tiny, entitled tornado, lamenting the low vibrations of the airport and manifesting a free first-class upgrade, an empty row, and, naturally, a window seat for epic manifestation content. My grandpa always said, the loudest person in the room is usually trying hardest to fill the quiet void in their soul, and I just knew he would have loved to analyze Bliss Sinclair. I was sitting there, trying to finish the last chapter of a dense spy novel, trying to be a peaceful human being, but her voice was this piercing, high-frequency whine that cut through the gate announcements and the dull roar of the jet engines, complaining about the water, the lack of charging ports, and the gate agent who hadn't recognized her from her viral video about demanding better service at a juice bar. Yeah, that was her. When our boarding zone was called, Zone 3, my zone, I stood up, passport and boarding pass clutched in my hand, 12F clearly visible. As I headed down the jet bridge, I saw Bliss leaning against the counter, batting her heavily lashed eyes at the gate agent, a man named Gary who looked like he'd been counting down the seconds to retirement since 1998. Come on, Gary, she purred. I really need that window. My Zen tribe is expecting visuals of our alignment with the clouds. Surely there's one tiny mistake we can fix, right? Gary just sighed, scanned my pass, wished me a good flight with an exhausted plea in his eyes to just keep moving, and told her, ma'am, the flight is completely full, and your assigned seat is 12E the aisle. She snapped something about the patriarchy keeping her from the light as I ducked on a plane, but I was already focused on my prize, the cool plastic of my window seat. I slid my backpack under the seat, settled into 12F, and let out that familiar exhale of a nervous flyer who just secured their safety bunker. It was glorious. For maybe 30 seconds, then the teal hurricane arrived, standing in the aisle, hands on her hips, her designer carry-on bag swinging dangerously close to my head. She looked from the 12F sign to me and back to the sign, and a slow, pitying smile spread across her face. Oh, honey, no, she said, dripping condescension like cheap perfume. I think you're mistaken. This is my seat. I held up my boarding pass. 12F, comes a lake in summer. I don't think so, I replied, channeling that stoic energy my grandfather always taught me. Never let a bully see you sweat, Alex, especially when they're dressed like a melted popsicle. My ticket says 12F. The scanner said 12F. I'm pretty sure this is 12F. She scoffed, waving her own ticket, the 12E1, in my face. Well, that's clearly a clerical error. I'm a creator. I need the window for my content. You're just reading a book. She said the word book like it was a contagious disease. The plane kept boarding, a line forming behind us, slowing the entire operation down. And Bliss thrived on the attention, propping up her phone so her Zen tribe could have a front row seat to my misogynistic seat stealing. I felt my face flush, the old instinct to just give in, take the aisle, and buy my peace kicking in hard. But that little voice of justice whispered, "You paid for this. Stand your ground." "Ma'am," I said, my voice quiet but firm, "this isn't up for negotiation. You have 12E, I have 12F. and that's how planes work. Just then, Sarah, the flight attendant, appeared, wearing the weary, seen-it-all face of someone who dealt with 1,000 entitled travelers before. "Is there a problem here?" she asked, a polite steel in her voice. Bliss instantly melted into a puddle of theatrical distress, pointing her long, teal-painted fingernail at me. "This man, he took my seat, and he's being so aggressive, making me feel so unsafe." My jaw almost detached from my skull. Aggressive? I was pinned against the window, clutching a dog-eared paperback. Sarah glanced at my pass, then at Bliss's. Her professional doubt lasted a millisecond. "Ma'am, your assigned seat is 12E the aisle. This gentleman is in his correct seat, 12F. The plane cannot depart until the aisle is clear." Bliss crossed her arms, a petulant child in a $500 outfit. "No, I'm not moving. What are you going to do about it?" Sarah leaned in, her voice a low, clear threat intended only for Bliss and me. "The policy is simple, ma'am. You take 12E, or we have you offloaded from the aircraft. You have 30 seconds before the captain gets involved." The words "offloaded" and "captain" did the trick. A flicker of real inconvenience, perhaps even fear, crossed her face. With a venomous glare at me, she grabbed her bag and flopped down into 12E with enough force to shake the entire row, immediately turning her back to me and firing up her phone. "Okay, Zen Tribe, the energy on this flight is toxic." The flight attendant was so rude and took the man's side. "Now I'm stuck next to this creep." She said the word creep while looking straight into my eyes. I just smiled a slow, tight smile. The battle for 12F was over, but I knew the war for my peace had just begun. The flight attendants went through the safety briefing, which Bliss filmed, adding sarcastic commentary. "Oh, a seatbelt, groundbreaking technology, people, and in the event of a water landing, my spiritual alignment clutch will not be used as a flotation device. Thank you very much." Sarah came by for the final check and asked her to put her phone in airplane mode. Bliss rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck, complied with a sigh, and then, the second Sarah moved on, I watched her turn the Wi-Fi right back on. Simple rules, it seemed, were suggestions in her reality. As the plane taxied and the engines roared to life, that familiar lurch of anxiety hit me. I gripped the armrests, focused on the blurring runway lights, and tried to remember my grandpa's words. "You can't control the storm, but you can control the boat." My boat felt very small and very shaky. Bliss, however, was narrating the takeoff like a sports commentator. "Wow, Tribe, feel that power? We are totally blasting off. Look at the little cars down there, so cute." Her voice was grating, but I tuned it out, focusing on the patchwork of Atlanta, shrinking below until we broke through the clouds and hit the first patch of sharp turbulence. The plane jolted, my knuckles went white, and Bliss let out a performative shriek, using the motion as an excuse to lean her entire teal-clad body into my personal space. I pressed myself against the window, trying to reclaim my air, my bubble. We leveled off, the seatbelt sign chimed off, and I started to relax, picking up my book. I made it through the worst part, or so I thought. About 20 minutes into the flight, the beverage cart arrived, and Sarah was a small oasis of professionalism. "Ginger ale, please," I said, my nervous stomach's placebo. Then she turned to Bliss. "I'll have a hot matcha latte." Bliss demanded, "Extra hot. I can't stand lukewarm. And make sure to non-dairy oat milk, none of that cow toxin." She received her cup, steaming, sugary, creamy, oat whey, and proceeded to stir it furiously, clattering the spoon against the plastic cup for her live stream. "Okay, Tribe, the matcha is actually not terrible. I am shocked. Maybe this flight won't be a total disaster after all," she said, speaking too soon, as if on cue. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Folks, unexpected turbulence ahead. Return to your seats. Fasten your seatbelts. Flight attendants, secure the cabin and take your seats." The plane immediately began to buck and sway. Across the aisle, I caught the eye of the woman in 12D, a quiet lady with short gray hair, knitting. Her name was Martha, and she just gave me a deadpan shrug, her needles clicking with steady, unbothered rhythm, an anchor of sanity. The plane dipped sharply, a stomach-lurching drop, and then it happened. It was a perfect, deliberate storm of physics and malice. The plane lurched hard to the side, and at that exact moment, Bliss decided to make a dramatic, sweeping gesture for her phone. Her elbow shot out, hitting my arm. The impact wasn't hard, but it was enough. The cup of scalding hot oat milk matcha flew out of her hand, hung in the air for a perfect green arc, and descended directly onto my lap. The heat was shocking, instant, searing pain soaking through my jeans. I let out a yelp I couldn't control. "Oh my God!" Bliss screamed, not looking at me but at her phone. "Did you see that Zen tribe? He just jolted me. He made me spill my expensive ceremonial beverage all over the place." I was staring down at the dark, spreading stain, the skin underneath screaming in protest. "You elbowed me." I choked out, my voice tight with pain and disbelief. She turned on me, eyes wide with fake innocence. "I did not. You're moving around, probably trying to get my attention, and you bumped my arm. This is your fault." She pointed dramatically at a few stray drops on her teal pants, ignoring the puddle scalding my leg. The turbulence was a problem, but Bliss was the full-blown disaster. The hot liquid was a real physical problem, and I was pinned in by the seatbelt sign. I could see the little red light on her phone, still recording, her face a mask of theatrical distress. "You guys, he's not even apologizing," she whined to her phone. "He assaulted me with his torso, and now my spiritual tracksuit is probably ruined, and he's just sitting there." I took a deep, shaky breath, tried to push past the searing pain and the blinding rage. "Stay calm, Alex." When a man is yelling, he can't be thinking. My grandpa's voice was a lifeline. I needed napkins, I needed ice, but Sarah and the other flight attendant were strapped into their jump seats. Across the aisle, Martha, the knitting woman, was already moving. She reached in her bag, pulled out a small packet of tissues and a cold bottle of water, leaning as far as her seatbelt allowed, holding them out. "Here," she said, her voice calm and low. "It's not ice, but the water is cold. It might help." She nodded at my soaked lap. I knit faster during drama. I gave her a grateful look, a silent thank you for the anchor of sanity. Bliss scoffed. "Oh, great. Now everyone's taking his side. This is so unfair." I carefully blotted the scalding mess. The sheer, mind-boggling injustice of her lie, broadcast to thousands, made my leg throb even more than the burn. I saw the comments scrolling on her phone screen. "OMG, what a jerk. Kick him off the plane. Poor Bliss. Are you okay?" Her Zen tribe was lapping it up. I was a faceless creep tormenting their guru. As the turbulence subsided, Sarah was out of her seat immediately, first aid kit in hand. She stopped at our row, her professional gaze taking in my soaked pants, the puddle on the floor, and Bliss's pouting, still recording face. "Sir, are you all right?" she asked, genuine concern in her voice. "I'm okay," I said, but her tea spilled on me. It was pretty hot. Before I could say more, Bliss jumped in. "He bumped my arm. He slammed into me. It's his fault." Sarah looked at her, then back at me, a deep professional weariness in her eyes. She handed me burn cream and a cold pack. "I'm so sorry about this, sir." "Ma'am," she turned to Bliss, her voice firming up, "I'm going to have to ask you to stop filming. You cannot film crew or other passengers without consent. It is not allowed on this flight." Bliss gasped. "This is harassment. I am documenting my experience. It's my right." "It is not allowed on this flight, ma'am. Please turn it off," Sarah repeated with the finality of a locked door. Bliss angled the phone down, but kept it recording, just being more discreet. The live stream was my enemy, a skewed lens twisting reality into her weapon. The flight continued. The seatbelt sign stayed on. The captain had warned we were still in a large weather system, and everyone must remain seated. It was a simple, safety-critical instruction, and therefore a rule that Bliss Sinclair felt did not apply to her. She fidgeted. She sighed dramatically. She stretched her arms, narrowly missing my face. "I can't just sit here," she announced to her phone. This is a violation of my human rights. I need to stretch my alignment and use the lavatory. She unbuckled her belt with a loud, defiant click and pushed her way into the aisle. The plane was still bumping along. No flight attendant was in the aisle yet. She had to brace herself against the seat backs to keep her balance, holding her phone up high. Sometimes you just have to break the rules to live your truth, tribe. Don't let anyone tell you what to do, she narrated. Behind me, I heard a quiet sigh from the big, solidly built man in 13C, the one I hadn't paid much attention to. Bliss reached the beverage cart, which was secured with its brakes. To a normal person, this was a signal. Stop. But Bliss saw it as a personal affront. Seriously, she shouted for the whole cabin to hear. They're just leaving their trash in the middle of the aisle. She put her hand on the cart and gave it a shove. It groaned against the brakes. That sound got Sarah's attention. She emerged from the front galley, her face a thundercloud. Ma'am, I have told you to return to your seat. The seatbelt sign is on. You are endangering yourself and others. Bliss turned, a defiant smirk plastered on her face. I have to use the restroom. Are you going to deny me that? I'm going to require you to follow safety regulations. Sarah countered, walking briskly towards her. Sit down now. Instead of complying, Bliss gave the cart another, harder shove. It lurched forward, rattling ominously, a stack of plastic cups scattering across the floor. This is the line. You don't interfere with the crew and their equipment during a turbulent flight. Sarah reached her, her face set like granite. That's it. I need to see your boarding pass. I am issuing you a written warning. She pulled out the small pad for the in-flight disturbance report. The red card, the final step before law enforcement. Bliss just laughed. A written warning? Are you my kindergarten teacher? I'm not signing anything. She held up her phone. Tribe, we are witnessing a full-on power trip right now. This flight attendant is on a rampage. Sarah finished scribbling, tore off the sheet, and held it out. You don't have to sign it, but you do have to take it. This is your official notification that your behavior is being reported to the captain and may be reported to law enforcement upon landing. And then, in a moment of cinematic, career-ending stupidity, Bliss looked at the paper as if it were contaminated waste and slapped it. A full, open palm slap out of Sarah's hand. The paper fluttered to the floor. A collective gasp went through the cabin. Sarah's voice dropped to an icy whisper. Interfering with crew is a federal offense. Sit down now. You do not touch the crew. Ever. That's when the man from 13C moved. He didn't rush, he didn't yell. He just unbuckled, stood up in one smooth, fluid motion, and placed a firm, steady hand on Bliss's shoulder. Ma'am, he said, his voice deep and incredibly calm. You need to stop. Bliss spun around, fury bubbling up. Who do you think you? She stopped mid-sentence. He had pulled a wallet from his jacket and flipped it open, revealing a shield. He was a cop, an off-duty police officer. My name is Officer Thomas, he said, his voice now carrying the inescapable weight of the law. You just assaulted a flight attendant. You're going to turn around, walk back to your seat, and sit down? You're not going to say another word. For the first time all day, Bliss Sinclair was silent. Her teal color drained from her face. Her sense of entitlement was no match for calm, unshakable authority. Sarah nodded at Officer Thomas, picked up the warning, and spoke into the intercom. Captain, we have a Level 2 situation in the main cabin, requesting law enforcement be met upon arrival. Level 2, physical abuse. Officer Thomas gently guided the narrow-bodied Bliss back to 12E, secured her seatbelt, and, after checking with Sarah for the soft restraints, secured her wrist behind her seat. The moment was quiet, decisive, and absolutely satisfying. Her phone, forgotten on her lap, was still recording. The live stream was still active. Across the aisle, Martha, the knitting woman, was not knitting anymore. She had her phone out, watching the comments. She angled her screen towards me, and I saw it. The tide was turning. Wait, did she just shove that cart? One comment read, OMG, she totally hit the FA's hand. Said another. Then came receipts. Someone in the chat posted a blurry photo of my boarding pass I'd held up earlier. Seat 12F. The chat flipped instantly. She lied. Receipts beat rants. Unsubscribing. That's a federal crime. The weapon she created, her live stream, had become the irrefutable witness for the prosecution. The digital world she built was tearing her down in real time. The rest of the flight was the most tense, quiet 90 minutes of my life. Bliss sat beside me, a silent, restrained monument to her own spectacular failure. As we began our final descent into LAX, the city lights a carpet of diamonds below. She whispered, her voice a pathetic ghost of its former boom. "This is all your fault." I turned to her, genuinely curious. "My fault? How do you figure that?" "If you had just given me the seat," she mumbled, "none of this would have happened." The sheer, unmitigated gall of that statement took my breath away. "No," I said, my voice calm, "and even this all happened because you believe rules are for other people. It's that simple." As the plane docked, the engines spooled down, and Sarah's voice came over the intercom. "We ask that you please remain in your seats. All passengers must remain seated until law enforcement officials have boarded the aircraft." Everyone looked at our row. A minute later, 2 uniformed Port Authority officers stepped onto the plane. They headed straight for us. They removed the soft restraints, replacing them with a pair of shiny metal handcuffs. The click they made was the loudest sound in the silent cabin. Bliss looked small and pathetic in her ridiculous teal outfit. As they led her up the aisle, a few people held up their phones to capture the final walk of shame. I waited until the cabin was almost empty. Officer Thomas and Sarah were waiting for me. I gave my statement, describing everything from the coffee to the slap. Sarah just looked at me with a weary smile. "Thank you, Mr. Reed. You kept your boat steady. That's all we can ask." I finally stepped off the plane and into the terminal. My phone immediately buzzed. It was an email from Air Pacific Corporate Customer Care. "Dear Mr. Reed, we are aware of the serious incident. We want to extend our sincerest apologies for the unacceptable behavior of another passenger. As a gesture of our apology, we have deposited a $500 flight voucher into your account and upgraded your status to the next tier for the coming year. We have begun a formal review that may result in a long-term or lifetime ban." I stopped walking and read the email again. A voucher, an upgrade, a ban review for Bliss Sinclair. She didn't just lose the argument. She lost her flying privileges, probably forever, and her own content proved to be the best evidence against her. She played a stupid game and won a stupid prize. Walking out into the warm LA air, I thought about my grandpa. You should always try for peace. But sometimes peace isn't an option. Sometimes the only thing you can do is stand your ground, hold up your boarding pass, and trust that the simple rules, the bedrock of civilized society, will eventually win. Tell me, what do you think about this kind of entitlement? Was I right to stand my ground, or should I have just taken the aisle seat and bought my peace? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of them. And if you've ever had a run-in with a Bliss Sinclair of your own, hit that like button and share your story, because sometimes you just need a whole community to help you prove you were sitting in your own seat.